folks, I'm Tom Vasel. Welcome to Crowd Surfing. This is a video where we talk about Kickstarter and what a month it is. It seems like February and March are huge months for Kickstarters. People have caught up from their Christmas deficits, I suppose, and there are a lot of gigantic projects going on at Kickstarter at any given point. Some of the biggest ever anyway. Let's take a look at some of these amazing ones, starting with the news. Okay, first we have The Reckoners. This is based on Brandon Sanderson's novels, which are about, as far as I can tell, I haven't read them yet, although reading about this game has made me want to get these novels. Where there's some people's superpowers, they're called epics, and they turn evil, and so a bunch of normal people try to take them out. And that's what this game is. It's a cooperative style game, it's strategic, looks really gorgeous, 1 to 6 players, 75 minutes. This is from Nauvoo Games. Nauvoo Games has made some really great game stockpile. It's still in my collection, and they made a word game this year too. Some really good stuff, so I'm really excited about this, especially since they are huge fans of these books, so it's always good to see fans making a game. My pick of the week is City of Gears. City of Gears is by Gray Fox Games. This was originally going to be a Dice Tower Essentials game, but Arcane Wonders chose not to publish it. I would have easily. I really like this game. It is a 3x3 grid, and you have these kind of workers that you're moving across, and there's different ways you get these gears, and you have to decide whether you use these gears to kind of expand your influence or to increase your abilities, which will help you when you're rolling these dice. This game is simple, fun, fast, but also very tactical and strategic. Aeon's End Legacy. Aeon's End has had a very unique arc here. Originally it came out. It got good reviews on the gameplay. This cooperative game in which you're fighting bad guys and to cooperatively in a deck builder. But the art and graphic design were like, second edition. They really improved that. And now they're taking it farther with this Legacy game. And they're saying that there's like a ton of permutations for each character as these characters will change and grow. So I'm very interested in that one. One thing I found interesting is they said they're not doing a pledge manager at all. And they also said they're going to be selling it at Essen. And if you want to get Essen, don't back the Pledge Manager. Just go to Essen and buy it. That's very different than, it's very straightforward, which is good. That's just from Indie Boards and Cards. Lucky Duck, the folks who made Vikings Gone Wild, are making Chronicles of Crime. This is another cooperative game. That's really the rage these days, in which there is a crime being committed. You're working together to solve it using the game itself and virtual reality glasses, where you can look around and look at the crime scene. That's unique and interesting. Hopefully it will work well. Knights of Fire. This is a sequel to Days of Ire. It is a 1 to 3 player game. It's about a revolution there, a few thousand insurgents against the communist Red Army. And so while you don't need the original game to play this one, there's like a way to play them like in a row sequentially. And there's also some minis you can get with this campaign that then will work with both games. I played Days of Ire. It's a very good game. Can be played competitively or cooperatively, which is very unusual. Robin Hood and Merry Men. This is a semi-co-op. That's at least what they're saying, where Robin Hood looks like a worker placement style game where your workers can even get thrown into jail and you have to rescue them like Robin Hood. The reviews in this one, there is a lot of reviews, very stellar, great production. This one is really blowing up, and I'm interested because I love the theme of Robin Hood. Munchkin Deluxe Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Interestingly enough, this is not from Steve Jackson. This is Steve Jackson working with IDW, who has the license for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This looks like the least Munchkin-y of any Munchkin set I've seen. It's very Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle artwork, the comics and such. It looks like they're compatible, but that's what it is. There's no stretch goals or anything. They're just making the game, get it or not. Dice Settlers. This game, I'm really impressed with this one here from NSKN Games. It has a modular board. There's some really great components, some custom dice, which are neat. Ability, it looks like your straightforward Euro game, but it looks like a great gateway style game, like the kind of game where like, hey, let's get together, we get to roll dice and get resources. I really like the look of it. AEG has their second Kickstarter, the first one being Thunderstone Quest, with Edge of Darkness. This is the third card crafting game, although from what I understand, it's the first one that was designed. And I had a chance to look at a prototype of this last year at Gen Con. Was very tired, so I didn't get it all in. It's a much more grandiose game. And there's a threat tower where these cubes get dropped in the tower, and then they kind of randomize as to where they come out on the board. That's a really awesome idea. And then also the idea of card crafting, where you're building cards rather than a deck. And again, this is all like placed in a much bigger game. Peak Oil has a new expansion, Spillover expansion, some variant cards and things. Peak Oil is one of those smaller games where you own an oil company that really kind of flew under the radar, but I'm hearing more and more good things from people about it. Argonauts 2nd Edition. This is another cooperative game. It's definitely the theme of the day, in which you're Jason and his Argonauts going to get the Golden Fleece. You're supposed to die, but you're trying not to. 1 to 4 players. If you got the 1st edition, there's an upgrade packet you can pledge for 2, which is always a nice thing. Mysthia. This is from Tabula Games. You are a champion going out exploring islands. You're fighting against the other players, but also sometimes fighting against, even cooperatively, against monsters. A lot of little miniatures. It looks like a nice Greek-style theme. I might be wrong on what the theme is. It might be fantasy too, but it looks pretty cool. Sorcerer City. This is from Druid City Games. Boy, do they know how to run a Kickstarter. This one looks really good. Scott Caputo, he originally designed Whistle Stop, has done this one, a tile-laying style game. But I want to pause here and say, I'm sure this game is a fine game. And Druid City does a great job with their games. Great. But the coins in this game, I want to back it just for the coin. I just want the coins. These are some of the neatest coins I've ever seen because they're different sizes, but they all stack on top of each other. They have indentation where they stack. They could run a Kickstarter campaign for just those coins, and I would back easily. And I'm sure a lot of other people would too. And then finally, the big one, Batman Gotham City Chronicles. This thing's huge. Everything you can think of about Batman is in it, and if not, they're adding it stretch goal at a time. It's blowing up. This was based on the Conan game. Very similar. I played it. We played a live playthrough of it. So it has a very similar feel to that, but you have a bunch of the Batman heroes, and one person is the villain controlling all the bad guys. There is so much content here. It's not cheap, but you get a lot. I think it's the base pledge. You get a ton of stuff there, and it is Kickstarter exclusive. You will never be able to buy this elsewhere. So they're saying, and they might run a 2nd edition one, and you can get it later on down the road. But it has a lot of backers. I think it has over 10,000 backers. It's broken 2.78 million by the time when I'm recording this. Maybe it's hitting 3 million by the time you're viewing it. I don't know, but there's definitely a lot of momentum here. It's going to do well. But there are many of these that are doing extremely well. It's been a good month for Kickstarter. That's the news. Let's keep going on.
Hey folks, Mark here, and welcome back to another Dice Tower preview recap. Randy, Ann, and I recently took a look at some new projects on Kickstarter. Now, these are paid previews, and it's our hope that we give you a real sense of each game. First up, we have Dice Settlers. Dice Settlers is a civilization dice game of pool building, resource gathering, and area control. Each turn, players reach into their bag of dice, roll, and choose their own actions, from exploring new lands and building the board through gathering resources and trading to develop new technologies. Dice Settlers is for 2 to 4 players and brought to you by NSKN Games. Next up, we have Sorcerer City. You and your fellow players are rival wizard architects in charge of building the same city district over 5 years, expanding it and rebuilding it to gain the most money, influence, magic, and victory. Sorcerer City is for 2 to 5 players and brought to you by Druid City Games. Dicemon is a strategic chess-type board game. Players command their factions, roll special designated dice to summon his or her monster army, and take down the opponent's base. Each monster has its unique ability. You should use them well. Play the best move in order to snowball the advantage. Dicemon is for 2 to 4 players. Guardian's Gambit is a casual 2-player card combat game you could play without having to sit at a table. Quick rounds and a portable size makes this the perfect game to play while waiting in line. Each round, players are competing to eliminate their opponent's guardians through a mix of deduction, memory, strategy, and a little bit of luck. Guardian's Gambit is for 2 players. In the game of Master of Respect, players are old masters of martial arts, and their goal is to expand their dojo by assigning actions to their students, such as inviting a new student, training a student, and mastering a skill. Master of Respect is for 3 to 5 players and is brought to you by Hobby Japan. And finally, The Reckoners, a game based on the young adult fantasy novels by Brandon Sanderson. This game allows players to take on the roles of the novel's protagonists and work together to save the world. In the game, players must overcome multiple ruthless and powerful epics, the equivalent of supervillains, that each have unique game-impacting abilities. The Reckoners is for 1 to 4 players and brought to you by Navu Games. And make sure you check out Reckoners soon because it is almost finished on Kickstarter, fully funded with tons of stretch goals. So folks, for more details on each of the games mentioned here, please check out our full previews and see if the games might be a good fit for you. And if you are interested in having your game featured on a Dice Tower preview, please reach out to Tom or myself. And keep an eye out for more previews in the near future. All right, folks, until next time, we'll see you at the table.
Hey folks, and welcome to another FOMO, the segment where I take a look at a game that's currently seeking crowdfunding that I have a fear of missing out on, and maybe you do too. Today I'm going to take a look at Dice Settlers. Dice Settlers is a 4X style game where 2 to 4 players take on the roles of settlers and pioneers aiming to explore, settle, and rule a new land. The game plays until either a player has placed out their last house, or until either the supply of new map tiles, general supply victory point chips, or 2 colors of dice have run out. During the start of each round, players will draw dice from their personal bag based on their current dice pool amount, and then all players simultaneously roll these. This initial draw step is the only time players may move spent dice back to their bag if their bag is empty and they need to draw 1 or more dice in order to complete that initial pull. Players can re-roll up to 3 dice in their pool by sending a die showing the pioneer face to the spent area. Players may spend any die showing a resource face as well in order to draw an additional die from the bag as long as there are still dice left in that bag. Next, each player, starting with the first player, must spend 1 or more dice to complete an action. Available dice action include Hire, which allows player to gain additional dice into their personal pool. Players may choose a dice color that matches terrain color types they currently have presence on. Explore, allowing players to draw map tiles up to the number of dice used and placing 1 out, growing the map further. Players get a free tent on this newly explored tile, but players who have an adjacent present may also add a tent as well, and if they do, the exploring player gets to add another tent. You have Settle, which this icon allows a player to place or remove tents from their personal supply out onto the playing area or gain additional tents into their personal supply. Raid icons allow players to trade out tents of another player with tents of their own, providing they already have a presence on that tile. Icons showing resources can be exchanged for corresponding resource tokens. The trade symbol allows a player to swap out resources or even dice from their supply for victory point chips. The pioneer symbols during this phase can be used in pairs as a wildcard for any other symbol except for gold, because gold resource can be used as a replacement for other resources. The research symbol allows player to mark technology cards, gaining bonuses. Technology cards are set up at the start of the game in a 3x3 grid, allowing for a custom set of technology each game. These cards have requirements such as the number of research symbols needed, as well as any resources that are needed, as well as terrain tiles a player must currently have access to by being present on. Some tiles have bonuses in the form of either increased dice pool size or extra actions or other benefits. Players at any time, if they have at least 3 or more tents on a tile than anyone else, may exchange out these for a house of their color, gaining them permanent governorship of that tile. Houses may not be removed from the board once placed. After each player has taken 1 action at the table, then going in player order, each may take a second optional action if they wish, but the second action must be different than the first one they took. After this, any unspent dice are exhausted, with each player allowed to retain 1 if they wish, and players check for end of game. If no end of game, the play sets up for a new round. Once an end game trigger happens at the end of a round, players will tally up their final scores, adding points from the map tiles that contain victory points, technologies, set of dice they own, houses that they have placed out on the map, and victory point chips collected during the game. The player with the most points is the winner. So that's a brief look at Dice Settlers. Now that is a prototype copy that I was sent, and as such will not be the final components. I know the cubes themselves already have been replaced if you look on their Kickstarter page. Now this is a 4X game, and 4X games are something I love, but they tend to involve a lot of setup time and a lot of play time and a lot of rules explanations. And that's where this game shines, because not only is it set in a different theme than a lot of 4X, it's a settling game as opposed to a lot of 4X games that I have being space, is the fact that I could teach this game very quickly to the players at the table. Once they understood the basic iconography and the basic actions, we were ready to go. And the playtime was relatively short. The thing that I really enjoyed the most about this game, though, is those tech cards. There are 50 cards in the box, but you only use 9 of them each time, and that leads to a different experience in how the game is played each and every time you set up. So for me, this game is definitely going to be a FOMO, and something that I'm definitely going to back, and I hope you've enjoyed this look at Dice Settlers, and I look forward to seeing you folks next time.
So all in. I was thinking about this with the Batman Kickstarter, right? Because you can do the regular pledge, $120, $140, whatever, or you can do the $340 pledge and get everything. Get all these expansions. And this is kind of an interesting dilemma for us as Kickstarter backers. When we look at a pledge and we're sitting there saying, okay, I can get the base game. And you go and you watch the video and you learn about the base game and you say, oh, that game looks really good, but you can also get this Kickstarter. You can also get, you can get this expansion and this expansion, and you can upgrade the components here, and you can get a roll-up, play-up mat, or you can get everything. Oh, man, I want everything. But I'm wondering, how many of these get everything games that you have gotten do you play with everything? Now, CMON is certainly the master of this, right? They make games with a ton of stuff. Monolith does it too. There's a lot of companies who, when you buy it, you'll get 3 or 4 expansions, you get extra promo figures and models. Miniature games do this a lot. You get these Euro games that will have 6 different mini expansions with them. And I'm curious as to, and I think this might be a good thing to talk about in the comments, how many of you back these games and you play the basic game and you like it, and you might play with a little bit of the expansion stuff, but you don't touch most of it. Because I would guess that that's true for many people. Like, you get all this stuff and, oh, I have everything. Do you play with everything? No, but I can. And that's really what it is, right? We can. And it's kind of weird to me sometimes that we're buying all these expansions before we even know if the game is good. I've done this myself way back in 2003 when I bought Duel of Ages. They had released 7 expansions simultaneously with the game. And I was like, well, that's really cool. So I bought them all. I bought Duel of Ages and all the expansions. And it was fantastic. I did not play with all the expansions. I played with the game. But I eventually played with all of them. But I also wasn't having 2,000 new games come out every year at that point. That is what's happening now. And so you'll get a game and you'll get all this stuff and you'll have 16 extra armies you can use and 4 extra gods that come in this one, and 62 different monsters and 35 different special ability cards and 4 different new sets of cities with new goods or whatever. And you have all this stuff and you don't use it all because you played the game a few times and you're like, this is a really fun game. I really like it. I'll play it more often. And there's another new game over here. So is it worth it to go all in? I would posit that it is if you're going to play the game a lot. But at the same time, is it worth it to do it right away? Well, why do people do that? Fear of missing out. Of course. Blood Rage, people really like the game, and then they're like, oh, I wish I had these extra monsters. Well, you couldn't get them. Well, you can be sure that when the Rising Sun Kickstarter came by, people said, I'm doing this now because I want to get those extra monsters. All in. Is it worth it? It could be, but sometimes it isn't. Tell me in the comments if you've done it, and if you've ever regretted doing it, or if you thought it was a wise decision. Right? You might do it, to some people buy the base game and sell off all the extras to get money, and then they basically bought their base game for free. Some people do it because they're afraid they'll miss out farther on, and some people are like, no, the base game's good enough for me. Tell me what you think.
This is Jamie with Stonemeyer Games, and today I'm going to talk about cancellations. If you haven't run a Kickstarter campaign, it may come as a surprise to you that during the campaign, it is completely normal for about 5% of the backers at some point during the project to cancel their pledge. When this happens, whenever any backer cancels their pledge, you'll get an email notification from Kickstarter saying this person canceled their pledge. There will be no explanation. It'll just say this person canceled their pledge. I found in my early projects that these reminders were really, really disheartening. And at first I wondered if I had done something wrong. Had I sent a bad project update? Had I interacted poorly with the backer? And I'm sure in some cases that was true. But I found through several polls by me and other creators that for the most part, in like 95% of the time, it has nothing to do with you or your project. It just means maybe that person doesn't have as much money as they thought, or they backed on a whim and found out that the project wasn't really for them after they looked into it. Or maybe they backed another project and they had to allocate their resources around. It's nothing personal against you in the vast majority of the cases. But it feels personal when you get a cancellation. It feels like you've been rejected. So my recommendation, and something that I started doing, is that I filtered out these cancellation notifications. I use Gmail for my email, and so in Gmail you can set a filter to say, when I get this particular type of email, just delete it or archive it so that you don't have to actually see it. Now, this may seem like you are ignoring important data, but as I said, for the most case, this isn't about you. There isn't anything that you can actually learn from this data. The only reason where you might want to keep an eye on it and learn from cancellations is if a bunch of people cancel all at once. Then usually that means that you have done something and you don't need the notifications to tell you that. You'll see the funding level drop on your project page if you do something really dumb. And that's a case where you can go to your remaining backers and say, hey guys, what do you think happened here? Why do you think so many people left? And if you can act on that and improve the project, then that might be an opportunity for you to contact those backers who left and say, hey, I think this is why you left and I fixed it. My bad. I've listened to your subtle feedback and I've changed it. But for the most part, cancellations are just a natural part of the Kickstarter environment, and they're okay. And I would recommend not letting them impact your emotional health by being rejected over and over throughout a project by filtering out those cancellations. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. You can go to my Kickstarter Lessons blog and comment on the blog post about cancellations and filtering cancellations. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks.
Hey board gamers, BJ from Board Game Gumbo here, back with more Kickstarter Lanyap. That's right, I'm bringing you projects that won't break your budget, but throw in a little something extra. Here's what I've been checking out this week. I've been looking at a new game from Alleycat Games, designed by Darren Harble, called Pocket Sub. I love small box games, and a lot of the projects I feature here on the Lanyap are really portable, they're easy to set up, and play quickly. Pocket Sub fits the bill. In Pocket Sub, 2 to 4 players will captain sub-fleets and engage each other in nautical warfare. The game only takes 10 to 15 minutes and is an easy setup. Players will take 5 to 7 of these tiles and lay them out in a grid, each captain getting 3 subs in their command center, and will place them out on the grid. During each turn, players will move subs and plant mines, trying to destroy the other player's subs. If your sub comes into contact with another sub or a mine or a command center, it or both can be destroyed. And it's got an interesting late game mechanic. If you're down to your last sub, it becomes a hero sub and is impervious to sub attacks. That gives you one last chance to stay in the game. Last person standing wins. One of the downsides to this game is player elimination, of course, but I usually don't mind that mechanic if the game is short. If the playtime is only 10 to 15 minutes, as suggested, then when you lose your third sub, you're never really waiting long to start another game. I also like the extras that the little box carries. It's got detailed art by the same artist from Photosynthesis, and I love the little submarine meeples. Plus, there's a little bit of Lanyap here. For a few bucks more, you not only get an expansion, but you also get Kickstarter exclusive meeples for your command centers, the wooden aircraft carriers, instead of the tokens. Let's take a look at the pledge levels. Base plus pledge level is 15 bucks. You get the base game, you get the submarine meeples, the tiles, rulebook, everything you need to play. But for just a few bucks more, about $22 in American money, you get the expansion pack, you get the Whirlpool tokens, a couple of ways to different play it, and you get the Kickstarter exclusive 4 Command Center meeples, those aircraft carriers, as Lanyap. So that's Pocket Sub from Alleycat Games, out on Kickstarter right now. It's already met its funding goal. So what do you think of the game? Should I back it? Let us know in the comments below. And until next time, laissez le bon temps rouler.
Hey, hello there, Crowdfund Nation. So recently I've been backing up a lot of big games, lots of miniatures, big boxes. So this time I backed a small game. This is called Castles of Calera, which is a micro game for 2 to 4 players. It plays in about 15 minutes. It's really fun. This may have replaced Love Letters for me. So let's take a look. Each player will get 2 cards, and then you put the rest in the middle. On your turn, you will draw a card, then you will discard a card, either face down or face up. If you play a card face up, you have to take the action on the card. If you place a card face down, your turn is done, and then the next player goes. Once you play a new card, the cards have to go either on the right or on the left side of your card. You cannot create gaps or move the cards afterwards. And that's because some of the cards will give advantage to adjacent cards. Each card has a name, the action, and the score points. And then you keep going back and forth until the deck ends or there's no more cards left on your hand. At the end of the game, you score all the points for the face-up cards and then 1 point for every face-down cards. The reason you want to keep some cards face down is that many times those cards will have 0 point, and when you force your opponents to flip it upside up, it will score 0 points. Now, there are 0 point cards that you can make a set of 3 that will give you points. There are also cards like this one, for example, that would review and destroy a card or a castle piece. They'll call every card here a castle piece from your opponent. So let's say that trebuchet, they could remove one of my cards, either from here or from here, so it's score less point. So it's very quick. It takes, as I said, just about 15 minutes to play. It's very fun, and it's a nice filler, nice small game. So if you like a small game, a nice filler that you can play anywhere, that you can easily carry in your pocket, I think Castles of Calera is a really nice alternative for a lot of other small games like this. At the time of this recording, the game had not been fully funded yet, but yeah, if you like this kind of game, take a look. And I guess I see you guys again next time.
And that's it for another crowd surfing. Thanks so much, guys, for showing up. Man, there's so much. Kickstarter is really becoming almost like the main news of the board gaming world sometimes, it seems. And there definitely is a lot of great games that we'll get to play in a year or so. But I'm sure they'll be fun. There's always great things still coming out now. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel. You've been watching Crowd Surfing on the Dice Tower.